Hello and welcome to Road Fox Classics and the just about visible Triumph GT6 Mk2 restoration. Now we've gone through and done a lot of work on the front of the bulkhead, rather the A-post, and in the sill structure. We're almost finished, a little bit more to do, and then we're going to get on and repair the B-post area. Now, I got myself a bit of old sill cleaned up to make my rear wing repair. And hiding under the rear wing is of course the B-post. So we're going to have to look at that and do some repairs in that area too. So let's get on with that. Okay, so I cleaned up this, which is part of the sill I took off the driver's side, or the outermost of the four bits of sill that were there. So I've cleaned up, this is the top edge, I've cleaned that down so I've got a straight line. It's not quite, the curve isn't quite symmetrical, so you know, you can see where the top is at the moment is a bit flatter and then it curves around. So, but as I'd kind of got it, I thought it was worth using this as the start of my repair for the bottom of the rear wing. Most of what that's missing is the flange and a bit of the back, but I'm going to try and make the whole thing just as a couple of inches to go on the bottom. So I've got that, and obviously a sill as the pattern. So first thing, I'm going to try and bend flange on that edge and then start trying to make this curve, or make the curve match. Right, so I managed to make that bend. I've had to crisp it up a bit on the edge of the bench, but it seems to be alright. It's not quite as sharp as the sill, but you really can't tell if you can tell if you put them on top of one another, but not if they're next to one another. So that's alright, and with the manipulation, the shape is already starting to look pretty close, so I'm going to work on that a little bit and see if I can bring it to match. Okay, that's now looking quite decent. So what I've done is use my rather badly designed pipe mangle to give it a bit of a bend in a couple of places, and then I've been able to tune it up. This dolly is a really nice shape for the sill. I went out to go along and tune it up with that and the edge of the bench just to get that line fairly nice. So it looks alright on here. I'm going to go and look what it's like on the actual car. Okay, so where have we got to? So I put the sill back on in the place where it fits best with the bonnet. Well, almost. It needs to come up a bit here, but in terms of length, I've measured both sides of GT6, both sides of the Spitfire, along the trim line. Now the caveat, the Spitfire I replaced both the wings, rear wings, and the sills. So it's not necessarily the best reference, but both sides of the Spitfire 58.5 inches. This side of the GT6 58.5 inches now, as is, and the other side is at 58.25. And also this is at a replacement wing, rear wing, which is not quite right. So you can see, maybe you can see, it kicks out there. That should be straight along the back. So it seems unlikely that this should be. It seems like this position is probably reasonable. I decided I'm not going to commit to it yet because the door is also not the same shape as the other door. Just about, which explains why the wing doesn't fit very well. Anyway, I'm going to rebuild the door, and I don't think I've got an option but to take the skin off, because this looks like it needs repair. There's all the stuff down the front door which I don't think I can do with the skin on, and there's been some welding underneath at the bottom as well, which I need to have a look at. I think I'm going to give it my best effort to try and keep the skin. I think I don't see any other option but for it to come off. So I want to build the door so the door's at its final outer shape, then commit to the wing and the sill based on the door. And then if edges need building up or shaving or what have you, then that's fine. But then all of those panels will be ready to have that done to them, and we can kind of work from there. So let's go wait for a second. Well, we can't come under here. Now I know it looks alright until you start going further down. Now I've got my piece curved to shape. What I'm trying to do now is work out what the very rear edge should look like, so I can just weld this corner a bit at a right angle, a piece at a right angle, and then work on fitting at least like this sort of that sort of section to the bottom of that rear wing while it's still on the car. Then I'm going to cut maybe somewhere here. because there's bits in here need repair, and I want access into the inside of the B-post, because that's going to need some repair. As does this lip and this lip up here. But if we can get inside here, do the bottom of the B-post and all the floor and structure up there, then at least the inner structure for this side of the car will be done. We're ready to start putting the panels back. So I've got that clamped on and the edge matched up nicely to this. So all I've done is just run the grinder, well actually the slitting disc, going disc, just down the edge, just to sneak it up to the profile of the rear wing. So now I'm going to get an edge weld on here, probably trim a straight line across this, and then start working with the car. So now I'm going to cut that bottom flange off, start to get this fitted on. Okay, so I slightly messed up the trimming there, but otherwise that'll fit okay. Might need to go that way a little bit. Oh yeah, I trimmed away the remains of the old wing, so we're on the strengthener in the B-post here, so that's clamped to where it's going to be. I'm going to tack this overlapping like it is now, and then the cotton ball style to fix it on. I think I'm going to tack it on the car and not fully weld it till it's off the car. Yeah. I'm not doing that right now because it's windy and the rain keeps blowing through the door. I don't really want to be welding with the door shut, so it's at least time for a coffee break. Okay, so where have we got to? I've had about a week of being under the weather, so I've not done a huge amount, but I have tried to get out and do a couple of bits. I got wiper motor finished up and some other little things like that. I've just come back to this. And what I've done today is just made that little end bit. I was thinking of like kind of trying to save this, but it doesn't seem much point. So I used the shrinker and stretcher to make myself a little curved angle there, and then I've, as you see, as I did at the other end, welded it on both sides and grabbed back to give myself a bit of an edge. And what I can do now is lop off that edge and I start to fit it in, probably with the sill, so maybe not in its final place, because I think I'm going to end up modifying the sill to bring it back a tiny little bit, but at least to give the kind of straight line from the front of the car and the curve. Now the curve of this is in the right place now. I'm happy with that. Obviously this now has quite some flex to it, and had been hammered. This corner had been hit because of the fact that the whole sill had been hammered up, and then something stopped over the top. So anyway, let's see about getting this chopped up and cut in. Right, so I've got the shaped edge trimmed away there a little bit, and got that to fit onto the sill quite nicely. So that means this sticks out a tiny little bit, but I don't really like the curve here anyway, so I think once these two bits are together I'm going to manipulate this, cut it again, move it in a little bit, and then make sure I've got a nice smooth curve of the wheel arch. Otherwise I think ready to get this in. Right, so that bottom bit's tacked in. So I've done the trick of cutting through at an angle, pushing it up, tacking, moving along. So there's still a bit of wing inside there, but that doesn't matter because what I'm going to do now is chop it off about here, and then I'll finish weld that on the bench. And then hopefully when I put this back, because I'm trying to get it close to this body line, that's going to help me get it nice in that area, and we shall see. And before I take it off, I'm going to drill a couple of holes and put some. I'm going to give myself some locator points with Cricos so that I can get it back in the same place. And then while it's off, there's this bit can be repaired, and this bit, and so on and so forth. So I'll get on with that. We'll see what it looks like underneath here. Yeah, I still wasn't feeling great yesterday, so I didn't get a great deal done. I'm back out again and trying to get this join right. It slipped on me a bit when I was tacking it on the car, so I've been kind of going back along. I've cut through a couple of welds, I've planched others, and I got it to the point where the two sides meet up quite nicely. I'm just slowly going through and welding a tack at a time, and then letting it cool down. And pick it up now. so I can have it on the go. Just to not put too much heat into this panel, because this is quite thin and I don't want the weld to sink if I can avoid it. Seems to be happy so far, so I'm going to keep going. Well, this has proved a bit of a faff, because I thought everything was going great. Got it welded, polished, relatively smooth, and then I noticed, well, first at this end, that when I put it on, these two things were lined up, the two edges. And they weren't. The whole thing had kind of bent in, and so I noticed that end, and then I went to this end, and I found I'd actually welded here, and the whole the curve had gone wrong. So I decided to cut that. I've flattened it out again, and I got a big dip in the weld there. I'm just about to try fitting everything back on the car to see where it really should sit, because it seemed fine, and then actually that's a bit wrong. But otherwise it's looking okay. It's not perfectly smooth, but it's pretty good. So it's actually bent back into shape alright, but there's now a low where the weld is. Which I guess will be dealt with when it's painted. I think it's alright. So I'm just going to put a little extra cut in there, manipulate that down, and then fill in this hole. Re-weld up the extra cut I made there. But you know, once the sill's clamped in, the shape's pretty decent. Well, there's that in place. Not quite sure about this curve here. It feels like it's kicked. So this curve here, I feel like it's kicked out a bit, but the majority of it is good. I've still got my little dent there. I don't think I want to start putting any more weld on this panel. I've tried to planch it, it's not coming back, and I think if I start trying to build this up with weld, I'm going to end up burning the panel, or I think it's best just to. It's an obvious low. It can have some filler in. I think that's fine. Anyway, with this in place, I start to look at the panel behind, which is actually in remarkably good condition. Then there's all this. There's this here. I was going to replace that. I remember now. Anyway, I think I'm going to attack this wheel arch, get the paint and underseal and everything off, and see what it's like. I'm obviously going to have to do some work on this lip, but anyway, let's start at the bottom, deal with the B-post and the last bit of the inner sill, middle sill, and see what this is like. I want to be super sure about this area, because this area rots, and it doesn't look like it has, but I don't want to be complacent. So I'm going to have a good clean up, make sure everything looks good, and then it's almost like a couple of centimetres off the bottom of the B-post. It seems to need doing, which would be nice. Anyway, I'll get on with that. So not really a lot wrong here, is there? The last bit of the sill strengthener is still pitted, and I'm going to replace most of it. I don't quite know what the best route is right now. Possibly just eliminating this joint is the easiest thing. There doesn't look to be much wrong in this area, but then this is going to be something that, there's going to be rust in there. It'd be better to get rid of it, perhaps. And otherwise I can come under this hole. I go up there, and we need to do this bit, really. Though possibly I'll shrink a stretcher myself a nice L-shaped lip there, and just replace weld down here. Just get rid of all of that. Might be the easiest route. There's a bit of pitting here, and it would just maybe be easiest to do the whole lot. Now, I spent a lot of time. Let's see here. A lot of time trying to figure this out on Spitfire, because I didn't have enough. There wasn't enough original metal left to tell. But the way this goes together is this panel folds around here and goes under that, and then the edge of the B-post goes on top. But I think what I might do for my repair is not make a join. Just make my L-shaped. Basically delete the overlap seam, because then it's one less thing to worry about. One less thing to worry about rotting again, isn't it? In the wheel arch, this is maybe starting to go through from the middle, so I think I might do a chunk there, just for safety. This is pretty mangled. This is another place where the body was sat on the floor, and I managed to straighten it out quite a lot. But it's probably going to be best just to put a little chunk in, because that's going to be the easiest route to getting that not mangled again. This is still all surprisingly looks very solid. Well, not surprisingly. Again, I know this car's not been on the road very long, but it still was quite rotten in some places. Anyway, get on with all this lot next. I ended up deciding to do this. So we still keep this joint. Just, it's a factory original thing, and it's not actually bulging apart, so let's keep something. So that'll go there. And let's chop away some of this and see what's underneath. See how much, if any, floor lip we need to repair. Well, we do need to repair floor lip, but do we need to go into the inner sill? Probably not, but let's see. Okay, so I've had a clean up of the de-ruster in here, and welded a new lip on the edge of the floor. This is going to need another go. You see it's still a bit pitted, so well, it's going to stay pitted, but it's still got little bits of black in it. So I'm going to have another go at that, come back to this tomorrow. I've been debating cutting this off a bit higher. I think I'm still going to leave it for now, because we've actually got original bottom edge here. So I think what I'll do is I'll finish off the sill, the inner sill, then I'll be able to cut back to this height, and then rebuild this bit. Okay, so I've got my sill piece ready to go. I have once again forgot to drill a hole in it, so let's try and not forget that before installation. Drain hole, that is. That's primed, so I got all the rust off, which is nice. I didn't really want to leave this under, some sort of rust converter or whatever, because it's in a really vulnerable place, so it will come back. Which will come back with a vengeance. I am now wondering if I'd just have the whole car dipped, which would get rid of all this and replace it with something else anyway. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Thinking I could possibly start making this while I'm waiting for the primer to dry. Yeah, so while that paint is drying, I can make up the new lip that's going to go inside of here. So I can do that hopefully on the shrinker stretcher, because it's subtly curved in both directions, but it should be doable. And I'm going to go making a piece sort of at that angle, because the inner wheel arch comes in down here but doesn't touch the inside of the inner wing, so it's kind of a bit like that. The really bad example that I've got kicking around. So I'll cut myself a bit of metal and start shaping that. You've got to make that fit in here. So you see it needs to curve slightly in that direction and quite a lot in the other direction. So I'm going to start off trying to make this shallower curve. Trying to make this shallower curve and then bend it to match the outside of the wing, or the inside and the outside of the wing. So that means it needs to stretch in both cases. It doesn't stretch here to bend it like that way. And then we're going to need to shrink here. Pull it in. So I've been back and compared this to the car, and that seems to match the car. It doesn't match the wing all that well. So I think I'm going to hold off on doing any more with this until I'm test fitting this again, just because I'm not sure what's right, or whether I've made this curve on the wing too incorrect. I checked it against the sill, didn't I? So I should be right. Anyway, come back to that in a minute. I think what I'm going to do instead is just make myself a little bit to go over there, because this is just horribly dented, and the easiest thing to go do is just to chop it out. Do it again. Okay, so I took myself a little card template, made myself a metal piece, and I'm just using the vice and pliers to start these bends up around the edges. I've just been tightening them up with the hammer and dolly, or the not really a dolly, but it'll do. Okay, so that'll fit in there, and I've got most of the panel cut away to be able to fit it in. And I mean, I shouldn't really have been surprised, but I kind of am. This flange is a bit rubbish as well, so I'm going to have to repair some of that first, which is fine. Oh. I also realised after I'd made this that it needed to curve. Fortunately, I was able to get that lip into the stretcher and just do that. Right, so I got that tacked and then ran out of gas here, so that needs a bit of a redo. Didn't forget to drill the hole. I've just had the spot welder out and I put some well spaced spots in. I obviously went a bit overboard here. Yeah, the reason being is when I weld the whole sill on, I should be doing that at a heat that will penetrate 3 layers, or at a setting that will penetrate 3 layers. So having more spots in the way is actually going to risk making my join worse, because there's then a void between the sheets of metal. So I thought I'd do a couple, and then obviously I'm going to go along the whole way about every inch or whatever the close to original spacing would have been. Anyway, I can't do much more now, I've got to get some more gas, but hopefully I will be able to do that tomorrow and be able to move on to something else. Okay, gone out, got some more gas, got that on. Now I've just stuck the sill back on so I can check. I previously marked a line where I thought I needed to cut to bring the repaired floor and middle sill up to the level I wanted. I'm still happy with it here. I've got something at the back. Stick a piece of tape along, get that trimmed down, and then I can go and do the inside of the beat post and the wheel arch and all that. Alright, so the bottom of that's all trimmed up. It's a nice, mostly straight line. I slipped a bit somewhere under the front of the A-post and kind of... Anyway, it'll be fine once the sill's on. So what I think I'm going to do here is kind of chop off that, and then either I repair this piece and put it back, or I make a whole new section, depending on what it looks like on the other side. Okay, so I got myself an angle piece cut bent. Now what I have to do is make it fit there. Now I think this is at the very limit what the stretcher will do. So I'm expecting maybe the metal gets split, but we will see how it goes. And there's a subtle curve to the edge of the floor as well that it needs to fit in. Now if you've not seen these before, these are kick shrinker stretchers, so that one's the shrinker and that one's the stretcher. And what they do is grab the metal in jaws and pull it or push it together. So you can see along here there's these teeth marks, and that's the device actually pushing the metal apart. So we end up with the edge stretching and a curve forming. And I finally bought myself a second one because I just had one before and had to keep changing the jaws and it was a faff. I've got to make a really sharp bend here. So a lot of stretch in more or less the same place. Yeah, broke it. Twice. It's about that angle we need. I need to do much more subtle stretch along here. It looks like it's fitting what's on the car, but it's not meeting up all that nicely with my repair piece. So, which do I want to aim for? I suppose it is at the top where I've made it meet up better with the car. So they match up because it matched up with the top, this bit. So that would suggest, because I've matched that to the curve, and I just sort of clamp that on. So probably going to be a tomorrow job now for me though. Only have a couple of minutes, so I'm going to weld those up. Probably trim that back and start fitting the best to the car. Okay, so I've had my bit of a shuffle around, ready to get going on this again. I think what I'm going to do is trim back this lip, because you know it's only supposed to be that sort of size. I tend to make them bigger to start with because that gives me more to grip with the shrinker stretcher. So particularly here, it needs to match up with the edge. Yeah, so get that trimmed down. So I'll get the curve of this right relative to the wheel arch, and then I can fit this so it's the right shape compared with this, and then start to sneak it into the wheel arch. Okay, so I got that in. I managed to burn through with a couple of my spot welds. I checked the settings last time I used it, hadn't touched anything, but clearly something wasn't right, so I turned them into plug welds. I spent a reasonable amount of time trying to get this nice, because on the Spitfire these are vinyl covered and you can see through. I got some on my wheel arch repairs, well, actually not my wheel arch repairs, someone else's wheel arch repairs, where you can see the lumps through the vinyl. However, I don't think the GT6 had vinyl covered wheel arches, and also I'm going to be putting a seatbelt there, so it was a bit of a waste of time. Anyway, that is done. And so is this episode, because I think what I'm going to do now is stop on the main body and deal with the door. I've kind of been back and forth over this, and I've decided I'm going to skin it. There's so much damage to the skin that it just seems you'd be hours and hours and hours and hours on it, and I don't think I'd get as good a result as if I'd just changed it. So I've ordered the skin, got to strip the door, do the repairs to the shell, and then put the skin back on, and it'll be nice, and then we can get it fitted into this hole, and then fit the sill and the rear wing and the bonnet all to the door. But that'll be next time. So if you want to see that and you're not yet subscribed, please hit that button. Thanks to everyone who is subscribed. Thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. Thanks to people who comment in person as well. And I will see you next time.